So people are asking about the CIA agent. So I'll talk about that within the context of, I think, the movie's best feature, which is it was less ambitious. I'm so curious now about the origins and like the behind the scenes stuff from the first movie, because this movie was clearly less ambitious about its thematic undertones. Like, I just did this whole hour and 20-minute video on the first movie. I couldn't make an hour and 20 minutes about this movie. This movie just did not have that much meat to it. You know what I'm saying? This movie was much more safe and much less ambitious about like having this anti-colonial revolutionary message, which I think is good because it means less opportunity to fuck it up like it did in the first one. Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, who was going to come out to eventually, spoiler alert, be like a Hydra agent. Like, I hope they're setting up Black Panther and Namor versus Nazis. Like, what a way to bring it home for the third movie. I hope they do it. That's clearly what they're aiming for. I wonder if Coogler would do it, because part of me thinks, like, in looking at this movie, so getting back on track. I'm sorry, I'm about to start rambling. In getting back on track, so the first movie, if you watch the video, all of my criticisms come down to the movie trying to pair these very explicit and clear anti-colonial revolutionary rhetoric themes with a Disney product that supports the status quo. And when it came together, it was clear which one was more important at the end of the day. And so I wonder how much of Killmonger shooting black women and stuff like that was Disney being like, look, we need this dude to be a little less empathetic, because Coogler's from Oakland. He's talked about, admiring the Black Panthers. And like, it's very clear he's a student of that ideology and of those stories. The illusions don't stop. Queen Ramonda, they call her Queen Ramonda of Lumumba. Daughter of Lumumba. Like, that's not an accident. Major spoiler alert. At the end of the movie, we meet Prince T'Challa II, whose Haitian name is Toussaint, which is from Toussaint Louverture, who was the leader over the Haitian Revolution. So he still sprinkled that stuff in, but he made it less overt, which, and I want to be clear. Everything I say tonight, I withhold the right to back away from over the next couple of weeks, because I haven't had time to talk about this with other people whose opinions and ideas I respect, to kind of help refine and build my ideas. I haven't had time to let it settle. And so, like, different things I may feel very differently about things going forward. But I know that my peers who are much more critical of the first movie than I am, and find some of the things unforgiving, will probably agree that this movie tried to do less because of that. You know what I'm saying? So this brings it to the CIA agent. So I feel like Coogler either learned his lesson or listened to the criticism, one or the other. Because the first movie had all this explicit revolutionary rhetoric, but then you got Agent Ross running around this metaphor for the Congo, like, yeah, I'm here too, I'm one of the good ones. And it's like, all right, that's no, etc. So in this movie, Ross, I don't think he ever enters Wakanda. He's just kind of there. And he is serving as really a plot device for future stories. And he has a moment, somebody said on Twitter, where he earns a greater sense of allyship, in that he puts himself at risk within the structure that he comes from and exists in. Still would rather him not be there at all, but that's nice. They pulled back the whole Lumumba speech at the end of the first movie that I'm more and more convinced was forced on Coogler. They completely retconned that at the beginning of this movie, if you didn't catch that. So at the beginning of this movie, we start with Queen Ramonda. Well, not the very beginning. At first, they start out with just burying T'Challa. But they give us Queen Ramonda at the UN, basically saying, and France and America are like, where's our vibranium? You said you was going to share vibranium. And she basically says, Y'all motherfuckers don't know how to act. I ain't sharing shit. Good luck. And so that was dope. So that helps. That helps a little bit. And so the CIA guy now is like directly involved in CIA type shit. He's in a meeting where the American CIA person says, and I quote, "The president wants to attack Wakanda." And he says, "In what way?" And they say, very key word here, destabilization. So these are not buzzwords. These are overt allusions to what the CIA does and has done. Because they don't just go in there with guns, they destabilize a region, right? Later, Agent Ross has a moment with the CIA lady, and he tries to plead. He gives his best ally speech. Oh, it's adorable. He says, "Could you imagine what they could do if they were us?" And I love this. I love this moment. The CIA lady basically just comes in her pants and says, "I dream of it." She busts a nut right there on the spot, thinking about having the power of vibranium for colonial and imperial purposes. It is gross. And it's the whole point. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's like, "Oh, I dream of it." Like, it's so over the top. And so I'm like, thank you for like pulling that out. Cause like there was no inclination that the CIA was anything but action movie CIA in the first movie. And so in this movie, there's an effort to correct that. Still, you know, all of this within the context that this is a Disney movie product made by a multi-billion mega corporation, evil, yada, yada, yada. I hope that's clear. Give me the grace to understand that. But I'm talking about the movie in context. And she's very much a Nazi. She's very much Hydra, for those who don't know yet. So towards the end of the movie, Shuri visits the ancestral plane and Killmonger's there. And it's a really dope scene. This shit is dope. Again, Coogler is an excellent storyteller, excellent visual artist. And so Killmonger's conversation with her, that scene to me is a reclamation of Killmonger's highest like values, the way that people wanted to see him. You know, they go back and forth and he still's like, "I'm about that action, etc." And when she tries to say something about him being a false king and yada, 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 he points out, he says, "Yo, y'all wouldn't have saved that girl if it wasn't for me. I changed the way y'all look at the world. I changed the way y'all move. Your old kings were cowards. Your father was a hypocrite. Your father would have killed that girl. Your mother wouldn't have died for her if not for the ethos I introduced to your nation." And that's real. That's a real thing. And one thing I caught, and I had a discussion with a couple of people, they were kind of salty that essentially Wakanda took an L. And that they felt some type of way to see Wakanda like get, you know, dominated the way they did. Like they had the truce, it was called having to save Wakanda as much as I don't know how to say the name for Namor's nation. I'll come to him in a second. Wakanda, what people don't like to engage with is Wakanda was given Black excellence. Wakanda was given, you know, bougie Negroes. It was given, you know, Black folks that came here from another country with money and come to the Black suburbs and be like, your Black kids can't play with my African Black kids. That's what it was given a little bit. There's a moment at the beginning when Riri meets Shuri and she says young, gifted, and Black. She's like, "Well, I guess y'all don't really say that there, do y'all?" Because there is a gap there. It's giving talented 10th. Yes, thank you. Wakanda's giving talented 10th. So I was fine with Wakanda taking the L. Plus I know the comics. Like they went nice. Like Namor has straight up drowned Wakanda before. You know what I'm saying? And so Killmonger basically saying all the things he said is pulling out the best of his ethos to say like, okay, y'all don't have to feel like I feel about burning the world down and taking over and being a new empire, but you recognize that y'all was on some isolationist bullshit, and now and you see the ramifications of that. And what that helped me get more the second time is the thing that the movie does that doesn't land. The biggest flaw in the movie is that Shuri's motivation don't quite hit. Shuri goes from, in the first movie, being this like joyful child, which makes sense, to being like angry and like enraged, but we don't see it a lot. Maybe depressed, but we don't see it a lot. And like initially, I was like, why would she see Killmonger? She should see her mother. It doesn't make sense. And like, it don't make sense that Killmonger, it doesn't make sense that Shuri would be about Killmonger's direct action ethos too much. And there's moments where once you watch it again, there's moments in the editing where I can tell they pulled out lines that maybe would have made it make more sense. I don't know why they did that. Like they could cut things elsewhere. Like the conversation between Shuri and Namor, when she says, I can't let you kill that girl. Like I can tell there was a chunk about T'Challa there in the middle that they cut out. I can tell that there's a piece that was cut out. I can tell there was a chunk when Shuri is talking to Nakia that's cut out. And so for me, her arc is wobbly. I get it, it works, but it's wobbly. And so the idea, I'm pretty confident because there was a lot of rumors before, and if you just know the comics, you know, I'm pretty confident that the plan initially was to have T'Challa fight Namor, right? So he didn't rewrite the entire movie. He rewrote probably large chunks of it, but the grand scheme of things stayed the same. And so like it couldn't have been easy to reimagine Shuri in that position and think they're gonna get every piece of it right. So I don't know, it's hard to say, but that was to me the biggest flaw, is that if you were gonna make the story about Shuri's grieving process, to me they just didn't quite stick that as a process. She grieved here, and then not here, not here, not here, then here, then not here, not here, not here, then here. So it's just incoherent. So here's another take. So I guess let me talk about Namor. First, like, understand, black and brown folks got, you know, proxy beefs all over the country. Like I'm looking at you, Florida. I'm looking at all the Cubans and white Latinos in Florida who put DeSantis and the whole Republican Congress back in office in Florida. The only state that shit happened in. So like, is there solidarity between black and brown people across the country? Definitely. But in a lot of places, not so much. In California in particular, and I'm not an expert on this, but I'm pretty confident Coogler pulled from this experience because he's from Oakland. There are like parts of the city where black folks shouldn't go, not because of white people, but because of Mexicans, and vice versa. So was it fun to have to watch two colonized people fight, both of them fully aware that their mutual enemy are the surface people, right? That wasn't fun. That was a heavy thing to watch in the movie. It did its job well as a narrative device, because like, so talking about Namor was, that motherfucker was awesome. They did that shit. And this is what makes you think about or wonder about Coogler, and like, was it interference from Disney or was him just learning some lessons? Because Namor basically is just like Killmonger, except unlike Killmonger, where you feel like a lot of his stuff is forced, that they had to force us to disagree and dislike and be super heavy-handed into his low-key black manosphere, you know, excessive pro-black shit. That's what happened with Killmonger. Namor, at no point do I want him to lose or die based explicitly on his intentions or his actions, right? They really did a much better job of making him likable, understandable, but also understanding why he needed to be defeated. They made him a badass. I've already seen enough tweets to let me know that he, I guess, is replacing M'Baku for the thirst character of the movie. And I think that's on purpose, because if the movie is leading to finally, Dr. Jared Ball from Black Power Media, he pointed out, I talked to him and like used a lot of his views help inform the last Black Panther video. and one point he made was that we never see anti-colonial violence in the movies, like from anybody. Woman King, we barely saw it. In the first Black Panther, he was the one that pointed out that Killmonger was the only person to kill a colonizer. But Dr. Ball pointed out that there's no anti-colonial violence in Hollywood, that nobody ever dies. Very, very rarely do people, specifically white people, die on camera at the hands of colonized people in the name of decolonization. And that's a very, like, if you think about that, that's a real thing across Hollywood and all these. That's why I don't like all these slave narrative. I'm not going to see Emmett Till. I'm not going to see none of that shit, because they show us how we can be better and overcome and rise up, whatever. They don't never show us how to kill our masters. And so Namor coming out and them like murking and wrecking shop on the people at sea in the first 10 minutes, I was like, okay, we making progress. It'd be nice if it was us, but we gonna have unity, I guess. And so there's still plenty to critique in that, right? Like, it's frustrating that we're 2 movies in and Black Panther hasn't fought the KKK yet, which he does in the comics. But so Namor was dope. I did not enjoy watching them fight because I understood the subtext, but I also understand the narrative purpose that serves. I understand the thematic purpose that serves. I saw, thank you, Steve Nunez, for $5. Yo, I saw some Mexicans coming out the theater this second time, like decked out in their or they might have been indigenous Americans actually, so I'm not sure. But I saw them decked out in their outfit, in some garbs and whatnot. I was like, okay, we cool. That's cool. Some people don't like that. Like, I think there's I don't know what to tell y'all. I don't know how to call it, but like some folks, there's a covetry over the space that Black Panther and Wakanda holds in the culture, and I get that, but I don't know if I'm gonna have the same energy as y'all. I'm about that Rainbow Coalition action. I understand the end point to what that covetry leads to. It leads to dinner with Jay-Z. So you can love Wakanda and you can want only, a certain type of energy at the movie, etc. I get it, but the stuff that to unpack there, you know what I'm saying? I hope Namor is popular enough to get some shine, and they can grab an indigenous or Mexican director out the blue to make some dope shit. I hope to God. And there's a history of Black political movements and political energy being co-opted by other people saying, we're all one, we're cool, until it's time to not be cool. Like, that's the thing, so there's a lot to unpack, but like, as a movie, narratively speaking, how I'm feeling about it, it all worked for me.
Project, this ain't what you want. This ain't what you want.